Welcome to the On the Move. As US and NATO allies left Afghanistan in the most chaotic way possible, and Taliban took over, the endless war and the rule of Taliban continues to occupy the headlines in the media. But there is less talk about women's resistance, what's waiting for women now in Afghanistan, as well as all the women in the recent weeks were forced to leave their country to all around the universe, basically. Today I have two guests who are on the move. I want to talk less today and more hear their stories. First, I have Sediqa Fahimi with me. Sediqa, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. It's a huge honor for us to have you on the program. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Sure. So I'm Sediqa Fahimi. I was used to work in Afghanistan in an NGO, international NGO, and before that I studied in the United States. I went back to my country in 2020 to work for Afghanistan, and that didn't last very long, and I had to leave Afghanistan, and now I'm in a refugee camp in United States.
How was your journey? When did you arrive in the United States, and how the whole journey started until you arrived in the States?
It was a very difficult journey. I experienced the hardest day of almost my life. When Taliban took over Afghanistan in 1990s, I was a child. I don't remember anything because I was living in a village. There was not any Talib in that time, but this time in my life, I experienced that Taliban came suddenly. The day like I was working, my sister were in the street, they were going to a school, and suddenly the Taliban came and they screamed and they came home. And so my mom was very worried about us, and she was always saying that you and your oldest sister, she is 19 years old, you have to leave Afghanistan because there's a huge stress, fear that the forced marriage will happen for us. And that was that my mom very convincing us to leave. So my sister and I, we left home at 3 a.m. in the morning. We went to airport and we waited all day around until 12 p.m. until that US soldier announced that the gate is closed and you have to go back home and come back 2 days later. And that's because the airport is very far from our home and we didn't have any men with us, and we had to stay there. And we said that we cannot go back home because there is so many checkpoints and we don't have any mahram with us, and it's difficult. And that was the time Taliban came and beat my sister a lot. Why you're not leaving here? You should go home, and that. And it was very difficult. And we lived 4 nights in the airport just until to get inside the airport. And it was without food, without water, without any clothes, without any living on the floor, sleeping on the floor, just in the street. Just to get inside the airport. And it's when we got it and we came here.
How many days were you waiting in front of the airport at the end?
In front of the airport, we were 2 days and 2 nights, but inside the airport, 2 more days and 2 more nights. Almost 4 days and 4 nights we were by ourselves.
It was you and your sister only?
Yes.
How old is your sister?
It's 19 years old. She is 19. Yeah. And until we got there, but when we got it there and we came to United States, we came to Bahrain and came to United States directly. So it was not very difficult after that.
Nowadays, recently, because the international airport, they claim to be opening soon, there are a lot of people left for the United States, for France, for other countries, but there are also thousands of other people who are still left in Afghanistan and who want to leave. But Taliban noted that people only with proper documents are going to be able to leave the country. Are you in touch with people at the moment who are still trying to leave, and what is their situation?
Yes, I am, and I have friends, co-worker, and relatives who work with United States, who work with British people, and they have the documents, they have passports. Some of them do not have passports. They do want to leave the country, but there is no way. One of my relatives, I don't want to mention his name, but he is in Mazar right now. They promised to take him on a charter flight, and it's like 13 days he's staying in a hotel room by all with his family, and there is no answer what will happen to them. Will they go or not? Because of that charter flights, Taliban do not allow them to take off from Mazar Sharif. So everybody who worked with the United States, who worked with foreign countries, their lives in danger, because in Kabul, in other provinces, they are going to door. They search their phones. They search, they ask the neighborhoods who work with the foreigners, and their lives are in danger. But there is no way, there is no flight taking off from Kabul, and it's also so many people do not have passport, and the passport office is not going to open soon. We don't know when will they. Like my family, they do not have passport, and we are desperately want to take them outside of Kabul, but they cannot because they don't have passport.
I understand. Majority of the media right now, international media, is based in Kabul. But as you said, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of reports of Taliban violence outside of Kabul that we don't see because there's no local free media, there's no international media. From your relatives or from the people you're in touch with, do you know what's happening outside of Kabul right now?
So there's so much happening even inside Kabul. People cannot report, because when I was there for 1 week, I was in Kabul under Taliban control, I switched off all my social media because I was afraid of to post something. They recognize, they come to me. So that's the fear, that now nobody can post, nobody can talk, nobody can share what's happening even in Kabul. Outside Kabul, like for example, in Bamiyan, the province I am from, Taliban is asking tax from people. Who those people? They don't have a job. They are farmers. They are drought. Drought is happening all over Afghanistan, and it is people do not have anything cultivated this year. So how they can pay you 5,000 Afghani per month? And if you don't, if you ask that families that are 7 people, 8 people, 12 people, they don't have enough food to eat. How they can pay you 5,000 Afghani per month as a tax to you? And that's one part of the story. The other thing is like in Bamiyan, for example, one of they do rape women, and nobody knows about those stories. Nobody. One of my relatives, whose neighbor, the Taliban came at night to their house and raped their women, and nobody knows. There is no accountability, there is no justice, there is no police to arrest those people. There is nothing. So it's happening all over Afghanistan. It's happening in North Uzbek people who is going. Nobody nowadays knows stories about Uzbek people. What's happening in North? What's happening in provinces in Bamiyan, like Bamiyan, Daikundi? What's happening in Panjshir? Nowadays, a genocide is happening in Panjshir. They are taking away people. They are killing people. The children are in the mountains without food, without water, and nobody is writing their stories. Nobody is telling their stories to the media. So yeah, it's a lot happening.
If I'm correct, you are also from the Hazara community.
Yes.
And
yes.
from my, very humble reading of Afghanistan, Hazara communities have been discriminated for decades in Afghanistan. Now,
I'm good.
Yeah. And now, you know, recently we weren't expecting any inclusivity, obviously, but as expected, Hazaras are nowhere to be seen in the new administration, in the new ministry. Even it's an acting one, they say it's going to change, but what are the risks that you may foresee again against Hazara people in Afghanistan? Can we see a repeat of the history from the first time of Taliban?
I mean, yes, that's the fear we have. You know what? So nowadays in the story, you just see that the journalists, they capture it, they torture it in Kabul. They are Hazara. I know that the journalists. So if you see like they have the fear that the international organization, the worldwide, the Western countries do not recognize them. They are even in that fear. The world is watching them. Still, in that case, they are taking away the journalists who are just doing their work. They are torturing, and they are from Hazara. Most of them, they are from Hazara ethnicity. Why they do that? One part of me is very happy that there is no minister from Hazara ethnicity in Taliban, because it means that we Hazara do not support Taliban. That is one thing. That the other part of me is saying that yes, if they are going to rule Afghanistan, it means we are not part of it. We will face worse than that, like what they did in the past. We in this 20 years, from one side, that government, even like from every perspective, we got discriminated. Bamiyan, Daikundi, Ghazni, that like Hazara provinces, they didn't see many international funds. They didn't see many development projects. And we Hazara, we didn't take any high positions. We didn't, even though we as Hazara, we are the most produce education, democracy. We worked so hard to get education. We built schools by our own money, but we saw so much discrimination. We as a Hazara, if you had a master's degree, you would not get a position that they would be able to get that with a bachelor degree. But now, we see that will be the worst scenario. They don't recognize Hazara as a people. Some of them, sometimes they even the soldiers, of course, I'm talking about the low positions people, like fighters. They say that they will kill Hazaras, because sometimes even they say that they are not Muslim because of they are Shia. So that is the fear that beside we get discrimination, the genocide might happen in all different provinces. A story came out of course, it's from a friend in Mazar Sharif. A person, a Hazara, stole something. So in Islam, in Taliban, when you steal something, they will cut your hand. But they didn't cut his hand. He just killed him because that is Hazara. So we are really afraid of seeing all the discrimination that happened, all of that in this government.
To come back to where you are now, what is the reception conditions where you're staying at the moment? In what kind of a place are you staying? What kind of what is the plan that's put in front of you in terms of your continued stay in the United States?
So my situation is good, not bad, because my case was special immigration visa. We are in a hotel, and the situation here is good. We have access to everything, food, water, and hygiene. And we don't know what will happen to us right now, because there is very less information being shared with the US government. We are just waiting. We passed some process like medical checkup and those things, but we are waiting. We don't know what will happen next.
Are you told that you need to apply for an asylum process? Are you asked to seek asylum, or do you have valid visas to stay in United States right now with your sister?
We are not. They didn't ask us to apply for asylum because we had a case. We had a SIV, special immigration visa case before coming to United States. So I think my understanding is that we are waiting for a visa to get it and go outside to be, able to stay legally.
Okay. Do you have limitations on your mobility where you're staying? Can you leave where you're staying? Can you move across the city or other cities within United States?
No, we are not able to leave right now. We are not able to have contact outside a lot because of, as they say, it's our safety. So we are not able to go out.
You mean you are not able to go out in terms of the hotel? So you're
inside of this neighborhood. We are in a military base. Yes, we are in a military base. We are not able to go to the city or do, see people. We are not able to see friends if they want to come here.
So there is also people from outside are not allowed to enter to meet with you. And are they saying how long this will last?
No, they are not saying.
You don't know?
No.
How do you feel about all of this right now? How are you?
I mean, I have different feelings. I'm not. Some people are saying that all this happened, it's because of United States itself. But I'm grateful for the people, for the government. At least they did provide an opportunity for people who are at risk. At least if they couldn't save all of them, they saved some people. That's a huge thing. I'm grateful of that. But the other part is that they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't leave the country like that. We women, we all Afghan people worked so hard. We invested. We started universities. We had businesses. We invested money. We invested our time. We invested our education in that country. We were working so hard. Even we couldn't believe that they will leave us like this. So we burned all our hard works just in one day, and everything was nothing remained there for us. So from that part of me is I'm mad, I'm upset, and why they did it. They shouldn't leave Afghan people like this. Yes, of course, it was the longest war. Maybe it's not longest war. I think Korea, United States and South Korea is more than 70 years they are there. But as they're saying that it was the longest war for United States. So yes, we were not expecting them to be there forever, but we expected them to leave Afghanistan smoothly, leave with plan, leave with what will happen next to us. So we are really upset for that.
And as we've just said, there are a lot of people still left in Afghanistan, and they are protesting on the streets. Especially we see brave women still protesting for their rights. Can you tell us about these protests? What are they demanding? And what is happening on the streets, both in Kabul and outside of Kabul? Because yes, I think there are protests everywhere.
Yes, yeah. One thing I want to emphasize that protests is everywhere, in every provinces. It's not yes, only Kabul is wanted something, the rest of the country, it's everywhere. Even my brother called me that they say that in Paklan province, the women wanted to protest. The Taliban treated them, trained them, warned them that if you come to the street, we will kill you. So the women couldn't come. But in all other provinces, Mazar, Khost, Kunduz, Takhar, everywhere there are women protesting. That's one I want to emphasize. The other thing is that they want their basic right, They want to be able to get education, be able to work, to be able to appear in the media, to do their job they love to do. We women in Afghanistan did so much sacrifice. And for example of myself, I fought with my family to allow me to work, come home late night. Like I was working during the day and I was going to English class in the afternoon after work, and they were not allowing me because they were saying that you are a woman. But I fought with them, I said that you want to allow me or not, I'm going. And it took time, but they got convinced and they allowed me to do that, and we fought. And now everything, like, we are in the cave and we are not allowed to go out. So those brave women, I'm so proud of them, and they're just demanding their basic rights. That is like just to get education, to be able to work, to live a life they want to live. It's not something that men decided. Oh no, the other day I was watching an interview of the minister of Taliban, is like saying that women should just give birth. It's not just we are for that. We are there to contribute to the society. We are there to work as a man. We are there to get education. We are, if a woman have her own income, the children will go to school better. The children will have better food. The children will be have better behavior. So if a woman has income, a woman has education, the future will be better. So I'm just saying, sometimes people are saying, I was reading an article from Khalilzad wives the last year, I think. It was like, women in Afghanistan are fighting only for grants, for foreigner attention. No, we women just want our own basic rights. That's nothing, it's just a right. We want to get education.
Yeah. I saw some videos of the protests of very young women, and maybe from your also sister's perspective, some people, who are on the streets did not experience the first takeover of Taliban, and they grew in the last 20 years, like your sister. So they argue that they are different, and they are not going to let it go. They will continue protesting. How do you see how women's movement, because I keep repeating this, but like Afghan women I've met over the years are always very strong women, and they are always, activists and very strong opinions, but is there anything new about the young generation in Afghanistan about women?
Yes, the new generation, they have a different perspectives. Yes, we those who are born after especially 2001, they saw a different world than us. They saw a different world than my mom. They see that women can do, the women can play sport, the women can sing, the women can climb mountains. We have a mountain climber. So it means they believe that we are not different from men. That's the main difference from old generation. The old generation believe that men are something different from women, but the new generation, they say, no, we are not different. We are the same. If we do anything, we can do it. So that's why I see that those women who are in the streets, especially young generation, they cannot believe it. Like now they have to be with like their moms, like just to just give birth and just be and do the house chores. No, they do believe that. And if my brother can go to work, I can do that too. And if my brother can play sport, I can do it too. So that's the difference. And I believe if Taliban, especially, at least allow the women to safely do protest, I think this movement will have some result. But the bad thing is that they are torturing, they are taking them away, to put the jail. They are warn them to, we will kill you. So, and that is something that family might try to stop their girls to go to the movements. And that is that will, if that happen, the result of the movement will be nothing.
Yeah. sorry, before we finish, over the years, we've always heard what the Western powers or Western leaders told us what Afghan women need, what do we need to do to protect Afghan women's rights. And now with these young generation of women, we see we learn that actually it is them telling us what
Yes.
Afghan women need. So for women like me who are not able to be there on the ground with them, what can we do to stand in solidarity and to support the growth of this movement, support that their voices are never shut down? What can we do? I mean, I know there is no one solution that you can say, but at least are there any conversations, dialogues that you hear that these people are asking from us to do?
Okay, so one thing for yourself and the women who have a platform, who has a place that women can share their voice, Afghan women, I ask you and every other women who are there, be the voice of women who are really experiencing the life in Afghanistan, who experience it. I'm mad about that. I saw Western media, they are giving voice to the women who never lived in Afghanistan, or like saying that women's right is not a priority, or we should give a chance to Taliban to show them. No, it's, if we don't act now, it will be very late, we act later. So the first thing you should, all of you should give chance to voice to people who are living in Afghanistan, or at least lived in Afghanistan, experience their life under Taliban, so they can share what's really important for them, what you guys can do. And the other thing is that you share these stories. If the Taliban is going to, limit the media, do not allow the journalists to do their work, you guys at least, they might not allow Afghan journalists, but you, foreigner journalists, you do have a privilege. Because of your country, Taliban will not torture you. They will not take you to your custody. So you should go and share their stories and take their stories and come out and share it. If they do not allow you to, go to a province like Panjshir, but at least you can, contact the people who are still there and share their voice. What is the situation there? How is the situation there? What women do that? And the other thing that women around the world can do is that ask their politicians, ask their leaders to not recognize Taliban until they, even do not recognize Taliban at all. If they want to do it, at least they should put some conditions, like, you should allow women to participate in the politics. You should allow women to go to school. You should allow women to study. All those basic rights, they should have it. So those things is, I think that's very important, and you can do it.
I agree. Women's rights are not negotiable. They are basic rights. And they are the rights that they're supposed to have. They are not. Yes. They cannot be part of the negotiation table. They should be there and given. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I hope we meet sometime in person.
Yeah, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I now have Afghan conceptual artist Rada Akbar with me. Rada, it's a great honor for me to host you in our program On the Move today. You are a highly recognized Afghan artist who's done painting, photography, documentary filmmaking, all sorts of other artworks. And so I really appreciate you joining me today. You are born and raised in Afghanistan and just recently arrived in Paris, France, as Kabul fell in August. I do not want to talk much today and take the time while you are here. So I want to ask first, how are you? And could you please tell us about who you are and what do you focus on your artwork at first?
It's a pleasure to be here today. As you said, I'm a visual artist, I'm a photographer and an activist, women's rights activist. And I arrived in Paris on August 19th I was evacuated along with many more Afghans who have been at high risk and managed to make it to Paris. As I said, as a women's rights activist, my main focus in my work, whether it was like visual art or photography, it has always been focused on the issues that women face in the society of Afghanistan. And my current work, which is called Habarzanan, which means superwomen, is about to honor and appreciate the contribution of women throughout history, because there has been this global misunderstanding about Afghan women that they are victims and they need saving, or that they are not capable of defining, our own priorities. So to change this narrative, I started this project, Habarzanan, to introduce the women, the female figures that have contributed to our society, to our culture, and to our history throughout our long, rich history.
Thank you. Can you also tell us about a bit about the journey itself? What happened by the time? What was happening by the time you were leaving Afghanistan? How did you arrange the journey, and how was your journey to begin with?
It has been a long and tough journey because it was evacuation, and before 15th of August, we witnessed that like 2-3 major cities started collapsing in the hands of the Taliban, and until Sunday that Kabul also collapsed to their hands. And before that, like even a week before that, I was still busy with my meetings, with my plans for my art projects, for my cultural projects. And I still had hope that things, to be, I was trying to be realistic, but at the same time, I was trying to be optimistic and, hopeful. So the worst case scenario that we predicted was that they will be part of the government, the Taliban. They will share power with them, but we never imagined that we will lose our country, we will lose our homes and everything, the gains that we made in the past 2 decades, just in the matter of few days and few hours. On August 15th, I received a call from a friend as I was driving through the city that she was terrified and scared, and she called me and she said that they're coming inside the city. And I could not believe it, even though like the day before I was so devastated when I heard that the 2 major cities, Jalalabad and Hazara and Bamyan, collapsed, but still, I don't know what was making me hopeful. I think I was very naive to believe that we will not lose Kabul or Kabul will not collapse. On Sunday, when I received that call, I tried to calm down my friend, and I told her that it's not going to happen anytime soon. And I told her that I will verify this with some of my sources, and I will get back to her. But after I verified with some of my sources, it was true. The Taliban were, around the Kabul city. They were not inside the city, but they were, moving towards the city center. So my brother asked me to go to my own flat, and he said, stay there until we understand what will happen, because right now, no one really knows what's going to happen in the next hours. I went there, and in that flat, there was another journalist, female journalist, working for New York Times, and another freelance French journalist who by then just arrived, was just a week that she arrived there. When I arrived home, I found that French journalist, terrified and scared, and she already received a call from the embassy telling her that she has to leave. And she told me that she doesn't want to leave because she said, you will be here, a lot of Afghans will be here. You have no way to leave, so I think I will be safe. You are the ones who are under threat. But then I checked with some of my French friends, and some of them asked me to go to their place because they thought that I will feel more safe if I stay with them. But then we all decided that it's better for me to stay in my place because we didn't know what was going on. It was very surprising because like just half an hour or 1 hour ago, like when I was driving throughout the city, the traffic was so heavy and so crazy. Like if you would just take a route like usually for 15 minutes, it would take us like more than 1 hour because the roads were fully packed with cars and people. You could see like hundreds of people lining up behind outside the banks and travel agencies. Sorry. But when I looked at my window, when I looked at the streets, there was nobody outside, and the vibe, the energy was very terrifying. You could see something bad was about to happen. And then a friend of me called me and she said she asked me to pack and go to the French embassy. And the woman who was living with us, she also received the same call asking her to pack and go to the embassy, to the French embassy, which was just 15 minutes away from us. So I only had less than an hour to pack, and they asked us to only take 20 kg with us. So I just randomly picked some of my stuff into a suitcase, and and then another friend who is a photographer, female photographer, journalist. She came, she picked us, and we all flew to the embassy. And after I arrived there, I saw so many people, like French citizens, internationals, Afghans, a lot of families with kids,
Is this on August 15? All happening in August 15 at the same day?
Yeah, it was around noon, early afternoon. And so within an hour, there were like more than 200 of people inside the embassy. And I saw that the embassy staff, they started burning the documents. Usually they would use those tools to make barbecue, but they were just like putting a lot of documents and burning everything. Like the whole day they were just burning documents. And so the Americans sent 2 helicopters to take the French and internationals to the airport. And they told us that after them they will come after us, but they never came after us. And I could see there were like just about 10 or 15 French special forces. But when I would look at them, they were so terrified, so stressed. That would make me even more scared because I had no idea what was going on. No one was going to update us. No, it was not transparent. And I kept asking, people that what's going on? What is the plan? When are we going to leave? And by the evening, the Taliban made it to the checkpoint of the embassy. So they were there. They were inside the city everywhere. All the security forces, Afghan security forces, they left their stations, and the Taliban took over all the stations, and they replaced their flags with our national flag. And they told us they're just right, at the checkpoint of the embassy. And there were some bomb blasts. I don't know where was that happening and why they were just like, exploding stuff. But it was very close to us. There were like, several bomb blasts and firing, and it was very intense. And then by the late evening, a lot of Afghans, around 100, came to the embassy. And there were like, some of them were activists, artists, like journalists, but amongst them were also some ordinary people. So they rushed to the embassy, and they also took them inside, but we never saw them because they kept them in a different building, and they said they are keeping them there to keep them safe. And so every day they would tell us that today we are going to leave, but they would wake us up like early morning, like midnight, or like.
In what kind of a space were you staying at the embassy? How many were you that were being told that you could leave anytime?
The thing is, like, the numbers kept growing because every hour, like, more people would just come to the embassy, like a lot of families, so many kids. So there was a garden. I have videos and photos. I can share it with you later. So everyone was just staying in the garden, and there was a basement. So people would just like go and sleep, in the basement. Um, but like it didn't matter because everyone was just was considered about their safety, and we just wanted to leave, and they give us these emergency foods. Usually I think it's the soldiers food, and so we would survive on those boxes of foods. And so it took us 3 days. We stayed there for 3 days and 3 nights, and on the third night around 11:30 or 12, they brought buses, and we all got into the buses, and there were, I think, about 8 or 10 armored cars with French special forces, and then they escorted us to the airport. But when we left the embassy, there were hundreds of people outside the embassy, and I was told that they have been staying there for days and nights trying to get inside the embassy. And yeah, and then we were stopped by one of the Taliban's checkpoints for 20 minutes. Then we took another route, and there again we had to change the route, and we were waiting outside the airport for half an hour by the Americans. And after that, like, finally around midnight, we made it inside the airport.
So it was even a challenge for the embassy buses to be able to get inside the airport.
Yeah, because the Americans say that they don't want to send helicopters for Afghans. And the French people, they were negotiating with the Taliban for those 3 days to get their guarantees that they will not harm us if they take us by road. So I think it was very challenging and frustrating for them, because I could see that, like, from the face of their special forces. They were very stressed and kind of like terrified.
So on 19th of August, when you were leaving, how was the airport in Kabul?
The airport, like, because we took the military side of the airport. I never been to that side before. So it was like a huge, massive camp of military camp, and each embassy, because they all moved to the airport, and they had a small area inside the airport, and they took us directly to this smaller camp that was that belonged to the French embassy, and then we stayed there. It was just like a massive area, and we were staying in an open area, and so there was a flight that night, early morning, and they said the families are the priority. So they sent first the families, and then the next flight was next day. So we stayed overnight at the airport, and the next day afternoon we got into the plane, and we flew to Abu Dhabi. And again in Abu Dhabi we arrived in the evening, and we stayed there like overnight, and the next day we took a flight and we came to Paris on 19th.
How was your reception in France? I mean, I know that there are some artist networks that you're familiar with, etc. But when you arrived in France, what was expecting you, and what are you dealing with at the moment in France? What is your what is expected from you, or what is put in front of you, basically?
So the thing is, because this was no one was ready for this, not us, nor French people, nor like anyone else. So this was a surprise for everyone, and it was a shock for everyone. So for everyone in that moment, it was just to take people out safely. It was just about the evacuation. And but one thing that the French people handled very well was that they, throughout our journey, like from the time we were at the embassy to the airport to when we arrived here, the way they have been treating people was very professional and with respect and compassion and kindness and like, full support. And that, like, I really appreciated. And when we arrived here, they took us in to a hotel because we were supposed to quarantine for 10 days, and we stayed in that hotel for 10 days. And after that, we went through the police immigration, because they said you either need to apply for asylum or go to another country. And since I have no other plan to go to another country, and I have to be, you know, in the system. So I applied for asylum on September 1st. And after that, they sent everyone to an area. They sent most of people to faraway cities and villages. But since I arrived here, like from the first day, I started like giving interviews, interacting with journalists, like being on media. So I told them that I need to be in Paris because I already made a network, and I need to be here, and I'm looking to find a residency. And they kept me here for the time being.
Nowadays, in the last couple of days, we're hearing news that with other international support, the airport in Kabul is opening up for commercial or other international flights. But Taliban made a statement saying that with people only with proper documents will be able to travel. You were able to leave. Some hundreds of people maybe were able to leave, but there are other hundreds, maybe thousands of people who also are eager or in need of, you know, trying to leave Afghanistan. How do you see what's going to happen now? Like, are people able to access any visas, proper travel documents? Because there are no proper embassies or any other foreign representation left in Kabul or elsewhere for that matter. So are you in contact with other people still in Afghanistan who are trying to sort these things out?
Yeah, there are, like, as you say, there are hundreds of thousands of people who were supposed to be, you know, some of them were on the list, some of them had their visas and their legal documents, but they could not make it to the airport. They could not, you know, leave the country. And it's very difficult because Taliban are not predictable. And so far they have been making empty promises. They talk, but their action on the ground is very different. So I'm hoping that they keep their promises and they let people go out, because those who want to leave, those who are at high risk, they should go out. They should leave the country. And as far as I know, France and other European countries, they are trying to figure out a way to continue issuing visas to those who, you know, who were not able to get a visa or to have their documents or to make it on the evacuation list. But I don't know how, but I believe that it has to be a third country. And I think it's going to take some time. And yeah.
I mean, now I want to first ask, at the same time, I want to ask two questions, I guess. While all this is happening, at the same time, there are a lot of protests ongoing on the streets of Kabul and other cities we hear and see on the news. And there are a lot of women who are protesting in Afghanistan at the moment. And so I want to ask, like, I know that these women are, you know, demanding their basic rights. First of all, like from right to live to right to work. But I want to hear your take on about, like, what are their demands? Why are they on the streets? And what are they facing? What are the risks that they are facing just to be protesting for their rights?
I feel so proud when I see those women risking their life only to go on the streets and to protest against the Taliban for their rights. They want their full rights because we have been fighting for the past 2 decades. You know, the gains we made was not easy. We compromised. We lost thousands of lives to make the gains that we had. And it's not easy for us to lose our rights. And those who are left behind and now they're abandoned by the world, that is the end for them. Like they need to, they feel that they have to, you know, risk their life, you know, to protect their rights, to protect the gains they made in the past 2 decades. And that is what they want. And I know it's very risky, it's very dangerous. And I'm in awe of like their courage and their, they inspire me. They're so, they make me even feel guilty that I'm here in Paris and I'm safe here, but they're left behind. And the world turned their back, it's back to them. And now it's just them, and they're losing their voices and they're risking their life only to save their voices. We saw that the Taliban arrested some journalists and they tortured them. They arrested some of the protesters.
That's what I wanted to ask. Are there any, because especially for language barriers particularly, I'm unable to have access to all the information. So we've seen the journalists who were severely tortured, but we have less news about all other women protesters across the country who are also beaten. Are there any news about these things? Do you have any information about them?
I haven't received any like verified report on that if they arrested women and if they tortured or anything, but the way they have been treating women on the street, just threatening them, calling them whores, or just threatening them that they will shoot them if they don't leave the area. Like I think it can get get worse. But right now, I think they are a bit precautious because of the international media, and I'm so worried and I'm scared what will happen if the international media will not be on the ground anymore, and we see how they treat the local journalists. And yeah, I just all I can say is that I'm very worried and concerned.
Yeah, and also one of the other concerns is that majority of the news that we receive through the international media is from Kabul, but we don't know what's happening outside of Kabul as much. So like, how are the women outside the city, the Kabul, and what's happening outside the city? In the countryside, in the rural areas, what is the condition of women in these areas?
Unfortunately, none of us really have access to those areas anymore. For instance, in Panjshir, we don't know what's happening there, but we know that a genocide is happening there. The Taliban are just torturing people. A lot of people are, have been missing in the past, couple of days and weeks from Panjshir, and the internet doesn't work there. We have no access. We don't really know what's going on there. And it's the same in other areas. And the main focus right now is Kabul, because most of these international journalists, they are in Kabul and they just reporting from Kabul. And that is like what we are missing, is like we have no idea what's going on in other parts of the country.
Yeah. In some of the videos that are shared on social media, I saw a lot of young women screaming their lungs out, saying that this is not 20 years ago. We are young, we are different, and we're going to continue to protest. So I want to ask also, from you yourself as being a very young women artist as well from Afghanistan, what has changed over the 20 years? And I mean, I think women from Afghanistan were always very strong and they always defended their rights. But has something changed over the last years? Are we now having a different moment for women's protests in Afghanistan?
Yeah, but a lot of these women, they never witnessed, they never lived under the control of the Taliban, in their lifetime. And as I said, it has, even in Kabul, life has never been easy for women. It has been very challenging for the right to have, access to education or to work or whatever. Women fought, for very basic rights. They had to compromise. They had to risk their lives. And it's not easy for them to lose everything, just, and accept the defeat easily. And that is why they are just going on the streets and they are screaming and they are just showing courage and bravery and raising their voices and just telling the world that, they even if the world turned its back to them, even if the world decided to abandon them, they don't want to quit. They don't want to give up, because they know they are aware of their rights. and they want to protect their rights. They want to save their rights.
Before we close, a couple more short questions. In a sense, it's, as you said, Taliban is unpredictable. We have no clear indication of what's coming. But on the other hand, with the new ministers, what we see on the streets, a lot of leaders speaking about women's rights, nothing seems very optimistic for any time soon. But I want to see, like, I don't want to create this dark scenario, but it is really worrisome. So what do you expect to happen? What do you think is awaiting for us to fight against? What's coming?
So what I say about the Taliban is that they have not changed. There was this narrative that some people were insisting that Taliban have changed, especially towards women's rights or human rights. They have not changed, and they have proved that. So we know that they are like the same terrorist groups with the same ideology, and they are the biggest enemy of women. That is why they have already started to, banning women from work. They banned women from sport. They banned women from going to universities, and the worst is coming. The worst is on the way. So what I think we need to, continue supporting the women of Afghanistan. And it's not impossible if the international community do not, send their international humanitarian, staff there. We need free media. The international community should continue supporting the free media, the local media especially, so we understand, we will know how the situation is on the ground, so we can monitor like the situation on the ground. UN has been very disappointing and very useless.
That's what I was going to ask. Over the years in Afghanistan, I mean, in terms of humanitarian aid and so forth, with the economy and the hunger growing really difficult in Afghanistan, I understand that these are essential things that needs to be negotiated with Taliban or with other local communities. But on the other hand, I'm like, even what we see in the recent days with severe attacks against the journalists, I'm wondering, like how, I mean, let me ask you this way. Over the years, world leaders, especially male leaders, told us how we should protect the rights of women in Afghanistan. But now on the streets of Afghanistan, women are actually telling us what we need to do to stand with Afghan women. So maybe for the last couple minutes, I can ask you, what should the, in terms of being in Afghanistan, enabling monitoring is crucial, but also those of us who can't be there, who can't go to Afghanistan, what do we need to do to be able to continue standing with Afghan women?
So for the past 2 decades, it has always been the Westerners, and especially the men, who have been talking on behalf of Afghan women. They didn't listen to us. I think now is the time to, if anyone wants to help Afghan women, they should listen to them. They should, they should speak to them. They should ask them what they want, because I think that is how people can help them. But if they continue just like speaking on our behalf for the next coming months or years, I don't think if they can do any support or any help.
Thank you very much for your time. I know in the midst of the whole this thing with internet and trying to find a place to do this interview with us, you've put a lot of effort to actually be here today with me. I really, really appreciate it. And I know, and we will meet sometime soon. I hope so. And thank you very much for being here. And I hope we will continue to talk and share Afghan women's stories and stand in solidarity as much as we can. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, that is like the last thing that I want to add is that they would always like believe that we need to be saved. but we don't need to be saved. You know, we don't need white saviors. We need solidarity, and we need sisterhood. That is what Afghan women need, and that is how, you know, if anyone wants to support us, that's how they can support us. It was a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you, and looking forward to meet with you in person.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Dear lost treasures, I feel deeply saddened to be here today. It feels devastating to give my words to you today. This empty space is burning my soul and heart. When we started Abar Zanan 3 years ago, I had never imagined we would go through this, holding the exhibition for the deceased. But I think everything impossible is possible here, in the absence of justice, in the absence of peace. Today we are celebrating and honoring another 8 superwomen who have all been killed for their beliefs and activities. All these heroes fought for a better and brighter future. They all lost their lives while fighting to protect women, children, art, nature. It's hard not to think of these women as we lose known and recognized champions like them every day in Afghanistan. We are living the darkest moment of our time, helplessly watching the daily loss of life. Journalists, writers, activists, human rights defenders, mothers, fathers, children. Justice seems unattainable as our voices are denied, our values are denied, our struggles and sacrifices are denied. Our stories are denied by the same people who came here to fight terrorism and claimed they would save Afghan women. I have been told that the world is tired of us, tired of Afghanistan and its bloodshed. Does the world know how helpless we feel when decisions about our lives, about our future, about our youth are made in Doha and Washington? Do they know that we walk on seas of bloods every day? Do they know the sizes and amounts of the scars in our hearts and souls? Do they know that death is breathing behind us? To the 8 women we honor through this exhibition today, and to the victims of terrorist attacks, I wish I could tell you we are living better lives. I wish I could say that humanity is kinder, more compassionate, more loving. I wish we never lost any of you. It was an honor to be here, to speak to you, to be able to tell parts of your stories, to remember you.
Türkiye'nin sivil, bağımsız, özgür ve çoğulcu bir medya ortamına ihtiyacı var. Medyascope 20 Ağustos 2015'te bu ihtiyacı karşılamak üzere yola çıktı. Ama yolumuz uzun. Bu yolculukta bize Patreon veya YouTube'un katıl butonu üzerinden katkıda bulunabilirsiniz. Destek verin, sizinle güçlenelim.